Okay, guys, it's time to pivot to persuasive speaking. I want to give you a really quick and straightforward overview of organizational pattern, which we talked about yesterday. Before I jump into that, however, I want to introduce you to a concept called cognitive dissonance. And some of you may have heard of this term. And for those of you that have, great, because you know what I'm talking about and you know how it can affect your speeches and the effect that has on your audience. And for those of you that are learning about it for the first time, this will be something for you to think about as you are composing your speeches and thinking about the ways to appeal to the people you're speaking to. So basically, dissonance theory says that as human beings, we are constantly looking for ways to stay in balance in our life and problem solve under the umbrella of our core values and beliefs. So, for instance, if someone said to me, "Hey, Casey Jones, you shouldn't smoke." Let's say I was a smoker. I'm not, but let's say I was. And someone said, "Hey, Casey Jones, smoking is unhealthy." That would put me into dissonance. That might make me feel uncomfortable because now they're basically telling me something I'm doing is wrong. So in order to regain balance, I would either accept what they're talking about and quit smoking, and then I would be back in balance, or I would have to reject that smoking is unhealthy and say, "I don't believe that, so I'm going to keep smoking." That'll put me back in balance because I've readjusted my perspective, right? So remember when we talked about self-actualization, acceptance of facts? Good old Maslow, this is where some of that stuff comes in. And when you're appealing to your audience, you have to understand that some of the things that you're introducing to your audience may be in conflict with their core values. So remember when we talked about the abortion conversation, and we have to get to the bottom of some people are against abortion and some people feel like you should have the right to choose. So if I'm having this conversation, I may be pushing up against somebody's core values and beliefs. So I would either need to reframe the problem, like we talked about in class, to say, we're not talking about legalization or illegalization. We want to eliminate the need for an abortion. We want to eliminate a woman's need to have one by increasing sex education or providing free contraceptives to high school kids and above. Now, that would be super controversial probably in some places, but do you see how I reframed the problem to say, let's take the legality out of it. Let's see if we can decrease the number of unplanned pregnancies. So I'm helping my audience to get back into harmony with an issue so that we can have a conversation about a solution that's outside of the normal argument about whether it should be legal or illegal. Does that make sense? So I want you to think about that. All right, just keep that in mind when you're appealing to your audience, that you're going to have to either reframe it for them or dispel some unknowns for them so that they can accept what you're saying as facts. Of course, in order to speak ethically, you need to provide them with facts. So you have to get that out of the databases, real data, real stuff. Okay? All right, so let's talk about problem solution. Super straightforward. All right, this is perfect for an audience that has no idea that they even had a problem, or they are aware of the problem, but they don't care one bit about it. So your job is to either introduce to them that there's a problem and or introduce to them how important the problem is. All right, so this is an outline for problem solution. You state the problem, you say how we got here, why do we even have this problem? Well, I'll tell you why. This is what happened, and this is the evidence that supports that this is a problem, and this is further evidence that supports if we don't do something about it, the problem's going to get worse. Data, data, data. You're like, okay, but what do we do? You go, well, that's perfect. I'm glad you asked because I have the solution for this problem. And not only do I have the solution, but I have the hows of my solution. This is how my solution is going to work. And this is the data that supports that my how is the right fit for this problem. And then I'm going to give you some evidence, lots of it. And then I'm going to give you additional evidence that says, if we do this, this is the evidence that proves what my outcome is going to be. So my problem establishes the how we have this problem, why we have a problem, and the solution is how we have a fix and why this fix is going to work. Okay? Data, data, data. Always. Okay, this is my favorite one. You know that because it's got a little drama. It's got a little drama. It's got a big attention grabber at the beginning, a big stat, some facts, have everybody stand up and stretch and tell them that just in doing that stretch, they've improved their life by this much. Tell them to turn off their phone. Imagine that it's 8 o'clock at night and you're 2 hours away from going to bed. You must shut down all of your electronic equipment. If you don't, your brain function is going to decrease by 20%. And over the course of your life, it could decrease up to this amount. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I got to do that. That's an attention grabber. And then you're going to give us some data. And then you're going to tell your audience why they should even be concerned about this problem. Why do I even care if I have diminished brain function? What? What difference does it make? You're like, this is why, and this is the data that says why. And then you're going to offer a solution and some data as to why the solution is the best. And then, my favorite part, the story. The story that says, imagine your life with 30% more brain function. Imagine your life if you increased your salary by 20%. Imagine your life if you took the opportunity to travel to France. Imagine your life if you learned another language. Imagine your life if this happened. Imagine the life of the ones you love. Imagine your life if you don't do it and it's a total epic fail, right? If you're going to use negative reinforcement. But if you do, just be really careful about the ethics of it. Don't overdo it on the pathos, right? And then you're going to give us a call to action, really specific about what you want me to do next. If you want me to call somebody, you better give me their number, right? If you want me to text my answer to you, you better show me how to text. If you want me to go fill out an online form to donate my organs, you better tell me what the URL is so I can go do it. All right? You want to tell me specifically, do this, do this, do this. So think about the times you've asked me, how do I attach something to DB? And I've said, go here, click this, look here, look at that, do that, click that, submit. All right? That's what you want to do here. Super specific. All right, now the next one I would talk about is comparative advantage. Comparative advantage suggests that when in comparison to this other plan, mine is the best. Now, there are many solutions to every problem, but in this particular case, I'm only talking about Stan in accounting. He's got a plan, I've got a plan. My plan is better than Stan's, and this is why. Now, in order to do that, I need to compare the pros and the cons. So I need to know my plan, and I need to know Stan's plan. And then I want to show you, yeah, this might be where they match up, but Stan's plan is 10% more expensive. It's going to take 30% more to implement, and it's going to affect less people over the life of his plan based on the data that I'm going to provide you. All right? You can compare as many plans as you want, but whatever you do, you have to know the pros and the cons of their plan and your plan. And really, in any of these patterns, it's not a bad thing to know what doesn't work about your plan, or what are some pitfalls, or what are some things we need to look out for, or when do we need to reevaluate so we can incorporate new information. That is not bad. In fact, audiences respond to that. Research shows that audiences want to hear a well-balanced discussion. They want to hear the pros and the cons. They want to hear what's going to go wrong and how you plan on fixing it. That is not a bad thing. That's a great thing. It's only weird if you don't acknowledge it, right? If you throw around a bunch of solutions with no data, you try to convince me that I've got a problem even though you don't have any data to prove that I have a problem, and then you basically say that your plan is the golden plan and there's nothing can go wrong. Well, immediately I think, well, something's going to go wrong. They haven't thought this through. All right? That's when refutation comes into play. Refutation pattern takes a couple incarnations. One of them is if you are arguing against people that think your plan is bad, right? You would want to refute their fears. So if I'm telling you to go donate an organ and you're like, hey, I heard that doctors will not work hard to save your life if you're an organ donor, you can say, hey, I can refute that because according to the Hippocratic Oath that the doctors take, they make a pledge, a promise, they take an oath that they will do everything in their power to save every life. You can refute that. There's rumors that they won't be able to have an open casket. You can refute that with data. You're refuting that. They're opposing you, and so you're refuting what their problem is with your issue. Right? The other one is to prove that an opposing argument is incorrect. Your plan is bad, and this is why. So I have more of a responsibility to prove why your plan isn't working than I have to introduce my own plan. I'm going to introduce a plan. I'm going to give you some counterpoints about why mine works. but primarily I'm going to say why yours is wrong. And this is also a organizational pattern that you would use to set the record straight, to get everybody back on board with what's actually true and what isn't true, and to face some facts. All right, so you can think of big ticket items out there, big topics that people are talking about where they have no facts, it sounds wonky, doesn't seem right. Well, that's put us in cognitive dissonance, and now that candidate, that boss, that person, that teacher, they need to do some things to put us back into harmony, which be to either prove that my plan is wrong, or for me to prove that that other plan is wrong, so that you can feel a little bit more empowered when you're making a decision. Does that make sense? So this is all stuff that you need to think about when you're putting together your speech. And believe me, I really think these speeches are going to be great. I think you've really done what you need to do to be prepared. But there's a couple things you cannot forget. And one is you've got to do the research. You have no choice. You have to use real data and research. That gives you credibility. That gives you credibility. We're all in a peer group together. So it would be weird if you were an expert on something really high level government stuff. But if you gave me some data and research and associated with people that are versed in that, excuse me, I would say, oh, you have credibility. You know what you're talking about. Now, the information, excuse me, the information I gave you today is from a book called Public Speaking: An Audience-Centered Approach by Stephen and Susan Beebe. And I sometimes use that book in my 16-week class, and it's much more theory-based. The book that you have for this class is very straightforward. It's more of a how-to. So when this is over and you're writing your speech, go back and review my slides, listen to the lecture, and also go into the book. Don't forget to read the pages. Don't forget to take the quiz. That quiz will help prep you. And then you should be in good shape to choose a pattern. All right, so this is a review of what we talked about yesterday. Be sure you post any questions that you have. Email me with any concerns. Other than that, I think it's going to be great. So go do some research, get to it, get it done. Send me any drafts that you want me to send you notes on. Do that by Friday, and we'll go for it, and it'll be amazing. All right, so go get to it. All right, bye.